Even if she's far away, even if she's passed on, even if you haven't heard her voice in decades, she's still inside you. Her presence lives not just in your memories, but in the hidden corners of your mind, in how you feel, speak, love, and doubt yourself. This is what Carl Jung tried to warn us about. The mother doesn't just live outside of you, she takes root inside. Her voice becomes your inner voice. Her pain becomes your silence. Her judgment becomes your fear. You may not even realize it's happening. You think you've grown up, moved on, but deep down, something still hesitates before you speak your truth. Something still wonders, what would she think of this? That something is not your mother. It's the inner mother you've built inside, the one who still holds power over your choices, your confidence, your sense of worth. Jung called this invisible influence the mother complex. It's not just about the woman herself. It's about the emotional imprint she left, the feeling of being enough or not enough, safe or unsafe, loved or ignored. This complex can guide your life without you knowing. You might think you're making your own decisions, but it's her old energy, her old voice, shaping your path. This internal version of your mother is made of more than memories. She's made of unmet needs, unfinished stories, and the parts of you that never got the love they needed. She's not always angry or cruel. Sometimes she just feels cold, distant, or sad. But she's there, and she speaks in the background of your thoughts, especially when you're trying to change or grow. Carl Jung wrote, "Nothing has a stronger influence psychologically on children than the unlived life of the parent. What your mother didn't live out, you may be carrying. Her regrets, her pain, her fear, pass to you silently, emotionally, unconsciously, and without realizing it, you might be living as her extension, not as your own person. That's why you may struggle to feel joy without guilt, why love might feel dangerous, why freedom makes you nervous. Because somewhere along the way you learned that to be yourself might hurt her, and so you dimmed your light to keep the peace. But in doing so, a part of you began to disappear. This isn't about blaming your mother. It's about reclaiming your soul. It's about understanding the difference between the outer mother and the inner mother. One is a person. The other is a pattern. One you can't control. The other you can transform. To heal, you don't have to change her. You don't have to get closure. What you need is the courage to face the part of you that still lives in her shadow, the part that still waits to be chosen, to be seen, to be loved. That's where the healing begins. Not by fixing the past, but by setting yourself free from it. This is not easy work. It's deep, sacred, and emotional. You're walking into the quietest parts of your soul, the places you've kept hidden even from yourself. But this journey is not about pain, it's about power. The moment you stop avoiding the mother within is the moment you begin to return to who you really are. You are allowed to grieve what you didn't receive. You are allowed to feel the anger and the sadness. You are allowed to stop carrying what isn't yours. You are allowed to finally say, "That was her pain, not mine." This is the first step, and it begins right now with the courage to look inside. Carl Jung believed that every human being carries inside them a deep, ancient image of the mother, not just as a personal memory, but as a symbol passed down through all of humanity. This is what he called the mother archetype. She lives in our dreams, our stories, our symbols, and in our emotions. She's bigger than one person. She's the idea of mother itself, the one who gives life, and the one who can take it away. Inside this image are two very different faces. The first is the nurturing mother, the one who holds you, protects you, and makes you feel safe. The second is the devouring mother, the one who controls, smothers, or makes you feel like you can't breathe. Jung called this the paradox of the great mother. She gives and she takes. She heals and she wounds. She gives comfort, but she also demands something in return. This inner mother can become a problem when she gets tangled up with your real-life experiences. Maybe your actual mother wasn't able to give you the love, freedom, or safety you needed. Maybe she was overwhelmed, angry, distant, or afraid. And instead of knowing that this was her story, you started believing it was your fault. You began to carry her emotional energy as if it was yours. So what happens next? You start confusing your real mother with the archetypal mother inside you. You start seeing people through that lens. A partner, a boss, a teacher. They begin to trigger that same emotional reaction. You might crave closeness and pull away at the same time. You might fear rejection, even before it happens. You're not reacting to them. You're reacting to the mother wound you haven't yet seen. And this is why it feels so confusing. Because part of you wants to be loved deeply and freely, but another part of you is afraid of being controlled again, of being hurt, of being swallowed. These two parts of you fight. One says, "Let me trust." The other says, "Don't get too close." And this war is happening inside your mind every day, often without words. Jung warned that when we don't understand this inner split, we keep trying to fix it outside of us. We look for love from people who can't give it. We try to change others instead of looking at the mirror within. We repeat patterns, thinking we're being wise or cautious, when really, we're stuck in a story we didn't write and didn't realize we were still reading. The truth is, if your image of the mother inside you is still wounded, it will keep shaping your world. You'll keep reaching for things that feel familiar, not things that are actually good for you. You'll call it fate, or chemistry, or instinct, but it's the wound speaking. It's the child inside you asking the same question over and over. Will you love me this time? Jung said that healing doesn't happen until we stop seeing our mother only as a person from our childhood and start seeing her as part of a much bigger picture. When we understand that our pain is also part of a collective story, something begins to shift. It's not just her fault. It's not just my trauma. It's a deeper wound, one that we now have the power to transform. You were never meant to live as someone else's shadow. You were never meant to carry the emotions of those who couldn't carry their own. And yet, you have. Maybe for years, maybe for a lifetime. But this story can change, not by denying what happened, but by reclaiming who you are beneath it. This is how we begin to heal the inner mother. Not by escaping the past, but by seeing it clearly. Not by making her perfect, but by making ourselves whole. When you see both faces of the mother, the one who gave and the one who took, you begin to stop waiting for her to change, and you start becoming the person who can hold yourself fully and finally in love. The shadow mother doesn't always show up as cruelty. Often she appears as overprotection, constant worry, or subtle guilt. She might have said, "I only want what's best for you," while silently shaping your every decision. As Carl Jung taught, the shadow mother isn't just the woman who failed you. She's the energy that holds on too tightly, even when you're trying to grow. This part of the mother archetype becomes harmful when love turns into possession, when her care becomes a cage, when her words, even if kind, send the message, "You're not safe without me." If this was your experience, it may have created a quiet fear inside you, a fear of freedom, of being on your own, of disappointing someone just by choosing your own path. As a child, you couldn't name this as control. You only felt confusion. Why do I feel guilty when I say no? Why does success make me anxious? Why do I feel bad when I shine? The answer lives in the shadow mother. Because when love was mixed with fear, your nervous system learned that being yourself might lead to loss. So you stayed small, not because you wanted to, but because you didn't feel safe to expand. Jung believed this kind of energy creates a psychic cage, a prison built not with walls, but with invisible beliefs. You start hearing her voice in your mind before you make a choice, before you speak your truth, before you even know what you want. Don't be selfish. Don't disappoint. Don't leave me behind. These are not your thoughts. They're her voice, living on inside you. And yet, from the outside, you might look completely independent. Maybe you've moved far away. Maybe you've built a life that looks free. But if her voice still speaks through your fear, if her presence still dictates what you dare to do, then the mother complex is still alive. Not because you're weak, but because you've never been taught how to cut the cord gently, lovingly, but fully. This fear often shows up in relationships. You might attract partners who feel just like her, controlling, critical, hard to please. Or you may become the one who overgives, constantly trying to keep others happy, hoping they won't abandon you. You're not repeating the past because you want to suffer. You're repeating it because your inner child is still trying to earn the love they never fully received. The hardest part, the guilt. Jung spoke often about how guilt keeps us stuck. Not the kind of guilt that comes from doing harm, but a deeper, inherited guilt. One that says, if I grow, I betray her. If I become free, I abandon her. This guilt doesn't come from logic. It comes from your soul's loyalty, a loyalty that must now be transformed into something healthier. Jung warned that if this guilt goes unchallenged, The mother's voice will dominate your inner world for life. You'll feel shame for choosing joy. You'll hesitate to follow your instincts. You'll second-guess your needs, not because the danger is real, but because the shadow mother has become your inner ruler, and no matter where you go, she goes with you, unless you decide to face her. But here's the truth. She is not the enemy. She is the threshold, the one you must see clearly in order to move beyond. The dragon that guards the treasure is not there to destroy you, but to force you to become strong enough to claim your truth. This is not about fighting your mother. It's about freeing yourself from the parts of her that live inside you without permission. To do this, you must start listening differently. Listen to the guilt. Listen to the hesitation. Not to obey it, but to understand where it came from. And then, little by little, begin to speak back. To say, I hear you, but this is my life now. That's how you begin to step out of the old roles. That's how you stop performing and start living. There is a part of you, quiet, hidden, and tender, that still waits for permission to rest, waits for approval before speaking, waits for someone to say, you did enough. This part isn't weak or immature. It's the inner child, the one who adapted to survive, the one who learned early that love came with conditions, that being yourself wasn't always safe. Carl Jung believed that the parts of ourselves we cannot express, our joy, our anger, our dreams, don't disappear. They go underground. They become part of what he called the shadow. The child within you is part of that shadow. Not because they are dark or bad, but because they were made to feel invisible. And so, even in adulthood, a piece of you may still live as if you're being watched, judged, or not quite allowed to exist fully. This child learned the rules. Be good. Don't be too loud. Don't ask for too much. And now, those rules live in your nervous system. You feel guilty when you rest. You shrink when you feel joy. You apologize for things that aren't your fault. These are not personality traits. They are protective strategies, echoes of the child's survival. Jung said that what remains unconscious rules our lives. If we don't make this inner child visible, we'll keep seeking from others what we never gave ourselves, permission to be whole. We'll keep looking for someone to validate us, to tell us we're good enough. But no amount of success, love, or praise will fill the space where your own voice should be, because healing doesn't come from the outside. It begins when you turn inward and say, I see you, I've got you now. You may have outgrown your childhood home, but if you haven't faced the inner child's grief, you're still living under its emotional roof. You may look free, but your choices may still be shaped by the hope that maybe one day she'll finally see me, finally love me for who I am. And this hope, as innocent as it is, can become a trap, because you're waiting for something the past can never give. This is why Jung said the path to wholeness begins not with forgiveness, but with truth. You don't have to hate your mother to admit she hurt you. You don't have to blame her to acknowledge your pain. The point is not to create enemies. The point is to tell the truth to yourself, even if it's hard, even if it breaks your heart a little, because that is how the child inside you begins to trust you. Your inner child doesn't need perfection. She doesn't even need answers. She just needs you to stop abandoning her, to stop silencing her pain in the name of being polite or spiritual. She needs space to cry, to rage, to rest, to hope again. And when you give her that space, through journaling, through imagination, through moments of self-honesty, she starts to come back to life. And as she returns, so do you. You remember what you were like before fear took over. You remember your creativity, your curiosity, your softness. These parts were never truly gone, only hidden. And now, as you face the mother within, you begin to recover the version of you that didn't need to earn love to be worthy of it. The separation from your mother isn't a punishment. It's a passage. It's the moment when you say, I honor your story, but I will no longer live inside it. It's not about running away. It's about finally choosing to stay with yourself, to be the guardian of your soul in a way no one else ever could. This is how the child begins to heal, not by pretending she's okay, but by knowing she's finally not alone. There's a quiet feeling many carry, but few can name. The guilt of becoming. It shows up when you succeed and feel undeserving, when you rest and feel lazy, when you take up space and suddenly feel afraid. This isn't ordinary guilt. It's ancient, inherited, and deeply emotional. Carl Jung called this the burden of the unlived life of the parent, a psychic weight passed from mother to child without a single word. You might feel it when you start to shine. As soon as you step into your power, something pulls you back. A whisper says, "Don't go too far. Don't forget her. Don't be more than she was." This guilt isn't about doing wrong. It's about outgrowing the story you were born into and fearing what that growth might mean for the bond you had with your mother. Many of us were trained, without knowing it, to carry our mother's sorrow, her disappointments, her shame. We saw the pain in her eyes and made an unconscious promise. "I'll carry it for you. I'll be the one who stays close. I won't leave you behind." It was a child's way of loving, but it became a contract written in silence, and it now lives inside your body like a tension you can't explain. Jung warned that when this kind of guilt remains unconscious, it becomes a barrier to freedom. You may try to thrive, but something inside sabotages your steps. Not because you're broken, but because your psyche still thinks that success equals betrayal, that healing means abandoning her, that joy means separation. So you hold back, not for yourself, but for the mother within. And this is the trap. You believe that suffering proves your love, that if you struggle, you are loyal, that if you sacrifice your joy, you are good. But Jung taught that this belief is not devotion. It's imprisonment. You are allowed to be free. You are allowed to succeed. You are allowed to become something she never imagined, and still love her from that place. Letting go of this guilt is not cold or ungrateful. It's a sign that you finally understand what love truly is. Real love doesn't ask you to shrink. It doesn't require your silence. It doesn't survive by chaining you to the past. It asks you to be whole, and then to love from that wholeness, not from obligation. This is where the inner work begins. You must start to separate what is yours from what was hers. Was the fear yours? Was the shame yours? Or were they passed down like an emotional heirloom no one wanted to question? You have the right to ask. You have the right to return what never belonged to you. One powerful way to begin this is by writing. Not for answers, but for clarity. Write to the mother in your mind. Say what was never said. Ask what was never asked. Speak not to win a response, but to finally hear your own voice. That act alone is enough to begin shifting the power within. And as this voice grows, so does your strength. The guilt may not vanish overnight, but it softens, it loosens, and eventually, you begin to walk forward, not against her, but beyond her. You walk with the grace of someone who loved deeply, but chose to live anyway. Because you are not here to live her life. You are here to live yours. You may find yourself caught in the same kinds of relationships over and over. People who criticize you. People who ignore your needs. People who seem to love you only when you're small, quiet, or convenient. It feels like a pattern, almost like fate. But Carl Jung would say, this is not fate. This is your unconscious trying to resolve something unfinished inside you. You are not choosing these people because you're weak or unaware. You're choosing them because something in your soul still hopes to rewrite the past. The child within you is still waiting for a different ending, for someone to see you, love you, hold you the way your mother could not. So you keep returning to the same emotional landscape, hoping this time it will be different. But it never is, because you're not interacting with the present. You're reliving the mother complex. You're trying to fix your history by recreating it in new people. This is not conscious. It's not your fault. But until you recognize it, the pattern will keep repeating. Jung believed that our psyche will bring us the same story again and again, not to hurt us, but to wake us up. This is why healing the inner mother matters so deeply. Because until that voice changes inside you, you'll keep attracting people who mirror the old wound. You'll think you're falling in love, but really, you're falling into a memory. You'll think you're chasing a future, but you're still locked in a loop. Your soul is begging you to break. You may wonder why you're so afraid of being alone, even when the relationship you're in is painful. That fear doesn't come from your adult mind. It comes from the child within, who still associates independence with abandonment, who still believes that if they walk away, they'll lose love forever. That's how the shadow mother trained you, to trade freedom for connection. And this is why many people stay in pain, not because they enjoy it, but because suffering feels familiar. Jung wrote that the psyche would rather live in a familiar hell than risk an unfamiliar heaven. Your nervous system may not trust peace. It may flinch at kindness. It may panic when things go well. Not because you're broken, but because your inner world still expects love to hurt. But this is the truth you must remember. The pattern is not who you are. It is what happened to you, and it can be unlearned. Not quickly, not easily, but slowly, with tenderness and truth. You can stop trying to win love from people who feel like your mother. You can stop mistaking anxiety for attraction. You can start choosing people who feel safe, slow, and steady. To do that, you must give the child within you something new. Protection, validation, consistency. Not from others, but from yourself. Jung believed that when we begin to mother ourselves, the world outside us changes. The need for chaos disappears. The longing to be saved fades, and a quiet kind of peace begins to rise. So when the next pattern appears, pause. Don't judge yourself. Just ask, who does this feel like? And if the answer is her, the mother inside you, know that you now have a choice. You can keep repeating, or you can start healing. Not to change the past, but to stop it from becoming your future. Sometimes the mother wound doesn't speak in words. It speaks through the body. Carl Jung believed that what the psyche cannot hold, the body expresses. This is why healing isn't just mental or emotional. It's physical. The tension in your shoulders, the tightness in your chest, the exhaustion that never goes away. They might not be medical mysteries. They might be memories, stored in your muscles. You may find yourself constantly tired, even when you've rested. You may feel anxious for no clear reason, like you're waiting for something bad to happen. Or you may go numb, unable to cry, unable to feel joy, just moving through life like you're underwater. These aren't signs of weakness. They are signs of survival, the body's way of protecting you from pain that felt too much to process. If your mother made you feel unsafe, even subtly, your nervous system learned to stay on alert. If she was cold or distant, your body may have learned to stay small. If love came with fear, your body may have confused stillness with danger. And now, even though you're older, that system still runs. Your body still lives in a past it can't forget. Jung taught that the unconscious doesn't follow time. What happened years ago may still be happening inside you. The inner child doesn't age like the rest of you. She stays in that frozen moment of, what's wrong with me, or why won't she look at me? And unless you go back for her, unless you offer her what she never received, her pain will speak, not in sentences, but in symptoms. This is why traditional advice often doesn't help. You can't think positive when your body feels afraid. You can't just move on when your nervous system is still wired for protection. Healing the mother wound isn't about pushing past your feelings. It's about turning toward them with kindness, with patience, with the wisdom that says, this makes sense and I'm still safe now. You may have been told to be strong, to forgive and forget, to get over it. But your body doesn't forget. Your body remembers what your mind had to bury. And that remembering is not the problem. It's the invitation, the signal, the whisper that says, I'm still here. Can you see me now? Jung believed that true healing is embodied. It lives in how you breathe, how you rest, how you speak to yourself. It lives in movement, in silence, in rituals that help the body feel what the mind tried to avoid. This is not about reliving trauma. It's about releasing it, letting it move through you so it no longer has to live inside you. You can begin by noticing. When do you feel small? When does your stomach tighten? When does your chest close? Don't rush to fix it. Just notice. Name it. Breathe. This simple act of awareness tells your inner child, I see you now. I won't abandon you again. And slowly, the body begins to trust you. This trust is the foundation of healing. Not dramatic breakthroughs, not spiritual perfection, but everyday moments when your body feels safe enough to relax, when your nervous system starts to believe that love doesn't have to hurt anymore. And in those quiet moments, the deepest transformation begins, not with words, but with presence. Carl Jung believed that true healing begins when you stop searching for someone to give you what you never received, and instead become that source of love yourself. This isn't about pretending your needs no longer matter. It's about meeting those needs in a new way, one that comes from within. Because no matter how much you long for it, the past cannot be rewritten. But the present, that is still yours to shape. You may never hear the words, I'm proud of you, from the person you needed it from. You may never be held in the way your body still aches for. But that doesn't mean you are doomed to live without warmth or safety. It means the time has come to offer that to yourself, not as a performance, but as a promise. I will no longer leave myself unloved. This is where reparenting begins. It's not a trendy idea. It's a spiritual decision, a soul agreement. You become the voice that says, I see you, I'm listening, you matter. Not when you've done enough, not when you're perfect, but now, in your confusion, in your fear, in your quiet strength. This is the voice the child in you has waited for all your life. Jung saw this as an essential part of individuation, the process of becoming your true self. You cannot become whole by cutting away your wounds. You become whole by learning to hold them. You give your inner child the care they were denied. You don't silence them. You don't shame them. You sit beside them in the dark and say, I won't leave you again. Reparenting looks different for everyone. For some, it's learning to rest without guilt. For others, it's speaking their truth, even when it shakes. It might mean crying without apologizing, eating with presence, making art, setting boundaries. These are not small things. They are sacred acts of self-respect, and they begin to replace the inner mother who judged and controlled with one who nurtures and protects. You are not becoming your biological mother. You are becoming the archetypal mother, the one who creates, sustains, and loves without punishment. You are rewriting the pattern, one choice at a time. And as you do, the old voice inside begins to fade. The critic softens. The guilt weakens, because something stronger is rising in its place. You may think, but I don't know how to do this. That's okay. Neither did she. The difference is, you are willing to learn. You are willing to be honest. You are willing to show up, not just for others, but for yourself. And that willingness is more powerful than perfection will ever be. With time, you begin to feel a new kind of safety. Not because life is easier, but because you are no longer your own enemy. You stop punishing yourself for being human. You stop waiting for love to arrive. You realize it's already here, in the way you speak to yourself, in the way you breathe, in the way you keep showing up, even with a trembling heart. Jung believed that the ultimate act of healing is not changing others, but becoming conscious of yourself. And when you mother yourself with kindness, you are not just healing a personal wound, you are interrupting an ancient cycle. You are becoming the person your ancestors longed for. You are offering future generations a different beginning. So when the voice returns, the one that doubts, that scolds, that shames, pause and speak back with something new. Say, I hear you, but I choose love now. That is how the mother within you begins to change, not through force, but through compassion. And that is how you become the mother you always needed. There comes a time in your healing when you realize something profound. The past will never apologize. The apology may never come. The mother you longed for may never see what she did. She may never change, or soften, or give you what your soul still aches for. And when that moment hits, it feels like grief. But Carl Jung would say, it's not an ending. It's the beginning of your liberation. You may carry anger. You may carry sadness. You may feel like you're standing in an empty field, holding a story with no resolution. That's okay. That's real. Because letting go doesn't mean you're over it. Letting go means you finally understand that you don't need the past to change in order to move forward. You need to change your relationship to the story. This is what Jung called individuation. The process of becoming who you truly are, beyond your conditioning, your inherited pain, your family roles. It's the quiet, sacred act of saying, that was their life. This is mine, not with cruelty, not with blame, but with clarity, with courage, with deep spiritual maturity. You may feel guilty for letting go, for walking your own path, for stepping away from the emotional entanglements that once felt like love. But what you're really doing is honoring your soul. You're breaking a chain. You're refusing to carry forward the silence, the shame, the fear that was passed down to you without your consent. This moment, the moment you say, I release you, is not about denial. It's about reclaiming power. When you stop waiting for them to change, your energy returns. When you stop needing their validation, your voice grows stronger. When you stop looking back, your eyes begin to see what's actually possible, now, here, in your life. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean the wound didn't happen. It means the wound no longer defines you. The inner child may still feel it. That's okay. You can hold her. You can say, I know you wanted something more, and I'm sorry you didn't get it. But I'm here now, and I won't leave you behind. This is the moment the past begins to lose its grip. When the mother in your mind, the one who haunted you, judged you, wounded you, starts to fade into the background, not as erasure, but as evolution, because you're not erasing her story. You're just not letting it rule your life anymore. Jung believed that when we finally release the need to fix the past, we make room for something deeper to emerge, the true self, the one who isn't afraid to take up space, the one who trusts her instincts, the one who knows that peace isn't something we wait for, it's something we build from within. So let yourself grieve what never came. Let yourself mourn the mother you imagined. But after that, breathe, stand tall, and walk forward. You are not abandoning her. You are returning to yourself. And in that return, you are doing what she may never have done, choosing truth over guilt, and life over loyalty to pain. This is where you stop carrying the story. This is where the weight falls away. This is where your life truly begins. There is a sacred shift that happens in your healing journey. A quiet moment when you stop waiting to be chosen, not because you no longer care, but because you finally understand the love you were craving was always meant to come from you. Carl Jung believed that wholeness is not about being loved by others. It's about reclaiming the parts of yourself you abandoned just to feel worthy. Many of us spend our lives chasing approval. We want someone to look at us and say, "You're enough. You matter. I see you." That hunger comes from the earliest wound, the moment we felt unseen, unfelt, or emotionally left behind. And so we perform, we achieve, we please, we become everything we think others want, just to hear what we needed to hear long ago. But over time, this performance becomes exhausting. You give and give, yet still feel empty. Because the real wound can't be filled with applause. It can only be healed through self-recognition, through the quiet act of turning inward and saying, I choose me. I no longer need someone else to prove I deserve to be here. This is what Jung meant when he said healing isn't about becoming good. It's about becoming whole. That means making peace with the parts of you that were rejected. Your sensitivity, your anger, your needs, your dreams, all of it belongs. All of it is sacred. When you stop hiding from yourself, you stop needing others to validate you. You begin to see that being chosen was never about love. It was about survival. As a child, love meant safety. And so being chosen became the only way to feel secure. But you are not that child anymore. You can now provide the safety you once lacked. You can now offer the kind of presence no one else ever gave you. That's not just healing. That's transformation. This change doesn't happen all at once. At first, you'll still crave the familiar approval. You'll still want the old patterns to feel safe. But slowly, something shifts. You start to feel full in your own company. You start to hear your own voice louder than theirs. You start to trust that your worth doesn't rise and fall with someone else's reaction. And here's the miracle. When you stop seeking to be chosen, you become magnetic. Not because you're trying to impress, but because you're finally real. People are drawn to the truth, to wholeness, to the quiet confidence of someone who knows who they are, even when no one is clapping. This is how the mother complex begins to fade. Not through anger, not through distance, but through your decision to stop chasing love that hurts. You return home to yourself, and from that place, everything changes. Not because the world is different, but because you are no longer abandoning yourself to belong in it. Jung believed that this inner shift is the doorway to freedom. When you no longer need to be chosen, you finally choose your peace, your path, your voice. You stop begging to be seen, and you start living as if you already are, because you are, because you always were, and now, finally, you see it too. For many, the loudest voice inside is not a dreamer, a nurturer, or a friend. It's a critic, a voice that questions everything you do, that tells you you're not ready, you're not enough, or you should have done better. Carl Jung understood this voice well. He called it a part of the complex, a fragment of the psyche that forms around old emotional wounds, and often that critic is the echo of the mother's unmet expectations. You may think it's just your personality, that you're too hard on yourself. But this voice wasn't born from nowhere. It likely began as a response to someone else's disappointment, silence, or control. Over time, that external judgment became an internal law. Now, even when no one is criticizing you, you feel like you're always being judged. The inner critic doesn't just shame you, it paralyzes you. You second-guess your choices. You over-apologize. You fear being too much, too loud, too bold. And yet, no matter how small you become, the voice doesn't stop, because its job is not to protect your joy. Its job is to preserve your past coping strategy. Jung taught that what we do not make conscious becomes our fate. If we don't understand where the inner critic came from, we let it guide our life. We confuse its fear with our truth. We mistake its warnings for wisdom. But deep down, we know that voice is not our soul speaking, it's our conditioning, disguised as caution. And here's the twist. The critic, like the shadow mother, is not evil, it's wounded. It learned to control because it never learned to feel safe. It tries to protect you from rejection by shrinking your joy before someone else can. It tries to protect you from shame by making you shame yourself first. It's misguided love, not cruelty. So how do you change it? Not by shouting it down, not by pretending it's not there, but by turning toward it. You pause, you listen, and then you say, I know you're scared, but I don't need you to lead anymore. You take your power back with compassion, not war. This is what Jung called integration, not killing off the parts of yourself you hate, but transforming them into allies. Your inner critic, once understood, can become your guardian, the one who protects your values, the one who helps you set boundaries, but only if it learns to speak from love, not fear. It's a slow shift, but it begins with awareness. The next time you hear that harsh voice, don't believe it blindly. Ask, whose voice is this? What does it remind me of? What is it really afraid of? And then speak back with your true self, with the voice that knows you are not a mistake. You are a miracle in motion. When this happens, the critic softens. The war inside quiets. You begin to act from freedom, not fear. You begin to create, to rest, to love, not because the critic is gone, but because it no longer rules you. And that is how healing sounds, like a voice once harsh, learning to speak in kindness. At the center of every mother wound is a broken definition of love. Many of us were taught, through experience, that love meant sacrifice, silence, or self-abandonment. We learned that to be loved, we had to earn it, through obedience, through performance, or through being needed. Carl Jung believed that these emotional blueprints shape not only our relationships, but the very way we see ourselves. When your first lessons in love are filled with conditions, it becomes hard to believe that love can be soft, that it can feel safe, that it can let you be exactly who you are. So instead, you chase what feels familiar. You fall for people who mirror the old wound, those who are distant, controlling, or hard to please, not because it feels good, but because it feels normal. This is the hidden legacy of the mother complex. You may keep loving people who leave you anxious, waiting, and unseen, not because you don't know better, but because a part of you still hopes that if you can just do everything right this time, the wound will finally close, that the past can finally be rewritten through someone else. But the truth is, it can't. No relationship, no matter how beautiful, can fix the original hurt. That healing is your responsibility. And it begins when you stop confusing love with suffering, when you stop mistaking anxiety for passion, when you realize, I don't have to chase love. I can choose love and be chosen back. This requires a new story, a new template, a new internal definition of what love actually is. Jung believed that real healing doesn't come from finding the perfect partner. It comes from becoming conscious, from recognizing the pattern and choosing to end it, not in anger, but in wisdom. Love, in its truest form, is not a performance, it's presence. It's the ability to say, I see you, as you are, and I'm not asking you to shrink, and you must offer this to yourself before you can truly receive it from another. Because if you don't believe you deserve soft love, you will reject it when it arrives. You will push it away or mistake it for boredom. Rewriting this story takes time. It takes practice. It means saying no to relationships that feel like home, when home was a place of pain. It means walking away from people who only love you when you abandon yourself. It means learning that you don't have to break your own heart to keep someone else's intact. And slowly, something shifts. You stop chasing people who run. You stop explaining yourself to those who can't hear you. You stop bleeding for people who never asked you to, because you no longer believe that love must be earned through suffering. You start to believe in a new kind of love, one that is mutual, honest, and healing. Jung would say that this is not just emotional growth, it is spiritual awakening. Because love, when reclaimed, becomes a doorway to the soul. And when you walk through that door, you no longer search for someone to rescue you. You search for someone to walk beside you, as an equal, not a savior. This is the love that honors who you are. This is the love your inner child never received. And now, finally, you have the power to give it. At some point in your healing, you realize that love without boundaries is not love, it's fusion. And fusion is not connection, it's entanglement. Carl Jung believed that the journey to wholeness requires separation, not in bitterness, but in clarity. You cannot become yourself if you are still emotionally merged with someone else's pain, guilt, or expectations. Boundaries are not walls, they are bridges back to your own soul. They're how you say, "This is where I end," and you begin. For those raised inside the mother complex, boundaries may feel terrifying. Saying no might feel like betrayal. Choosing yourself might feel like abandonment. That's not because you're wrong. It's because you were trained to believe that love means giving everything away. But boundaries are sacred. They protect your time, your energy, your heart. They are the language of self-respect. And when you begin to set them, even trembling, even unsure, you tell your inner child, "I will not allow us to be harmed just to keep someone else comfortable." That's not cruelty. That's healing in action. Jung said that individuation, becoming a whole person, demands a break from unconscious patterns. And for many, the mother complex is the deepest of all. It's not just about your relationship with her. It's about the emotional contracts you inherited. Contracts that said, be quiet to stay loved, be small to stay safe, carry what isn't yours to keep the peace. Boundaries break those contracts. They don't destroy the connection. They redefine it. They ask, can we relate in truth now, not in roles? And if the answer is no, if the other person cannot meet you there, you still win, because you are no longer sacrificing your soul for someone else's comfort. You may lose relationships when you set boundaries. That's real, that hurts, but you will never lose your soul again. And in time, you gain something deeper, yourself. You stop asking others for permission to be free. You stop molding yourself into a version that keeps the peace but costs your joy. This is the pivot. You begin to speak more gently to yourself. You stop over-explaining. You stop rushing to fix what isn't yours. You start moving from a deep inner truth, not from guilt, not from fear, but from presence. And slowly, the old energy, the over-functioning, the over-caring, the overcompensating, begins to fade. Jung would call this the return of the self. The part of you that was buried beneath duty, shame, or silence begins to breathe again. You feel more spacious, more grounded, less reactive. You no longer collapse when someone is disappointed. You no longer chase the approval that once defined your worth. This is the kind of peace you cannot perform your way into. You must claim it, with boundaries, with honesty, with the willingness to disappoint others, rather than abandon yourself. That is how you know you've stepped out of the mother's shadow, when you stop living to be good and start living to be whole. And wholeness is messy. It's not perfect, but it's real, and it is yours. There's a quiet revolution happening when you decide to heal what your mother could not. You may not feel like a warrior. You may cry often, doubt yourself, or move slowly, but make no mistake, you are doing sacred work. Carl Jung believed that when we make the unconscious conscious, we not only transform our own lives, we shift something in the collective. You are not just healing yourself, you are breaking a cycle that has lived for generations. Maybe your mother never had the chance to know herself. Maybe she was silenced by fear, or swallowed by duty, or raised by a mother who never touched her own wounds. Maybe she didn't know how to love without control, and maybe you became the one who saw it, the one who felt everything, even what wasn't said. And now, without realizing it, you've become the one who stops the story from continuing. You're the one who says, "This pain ends with me." You're the one who chooses awareness over repetition, boundaries over guilt, wholeness over survival. That is the mark of a conscious ancestor, someone who honors the past by refusing to pass down its trauma. Jung understood that unresolved pain doesn't die, it transfers. If not faced, it shows up in the next generation, in the daughter who doesn't know how to speak her needs, in the son who feels shame for resting, in the adult who chases love that always hurts. But when even one person becomes conscious, the chain begins to break. You may not have children, you may not plan to, but every time you speak your truth, every time you rest without shame, every time you love without losing yourself, you are changing the emotional inheritance of everyone around you. You are becoming a living permission slip for others to heal too. This path is not always seen. It's not always understood. You may feel alone, but you are not alone. You walk with the strength of every ancestor who was silenced, and the hope of every future soul who will not have to carry what you are releasing. Your courage is not invisible. It is generational light work. This work requires grief. You must mourn what never was. The mother you needed, the childhood you deserved, the love that was just out of reach. That grief is sacred. It is not a weakness. It is the portal through which transformation enters. Jung taught that true healing often feels like falling apart before it feels like peace. You are not failing. You are remaking yourself from truth. As you keep walking, you begin to feel a shift. You stop fighting the past. You stop seeking from it. You bless it, not because it was fair or kind, but because it shaped you into someone strong enough to turn pain into presence. You no longer carry the story with resentment. You carry it with wisdom. And from that place, you become something rare, a human being who holds both sorrow and joy, memory and choice, legacy and freedom. You are becoming the elder you never had, the safe voice your inner child longed for, the beginning of a new emotional future. You are the ancestor you were waiting for, and your healing, even if messy, even if quiet, is holy. In the end, this journey is not about blaming your mother. It's about finding your way back to yourself. Carl Jung believed that healing doesn't come from fixing others. It comes from reclaiming the lost parts of our own soul. And for many, the mother wound holds the key to that reclamation. Because it's not just a scar, it's a doorway, a call to come home to the self you had to leave behind just to survive. You were not born broken. You were born open, sensitive, full of instinct, rich in soul. But when the world, or your family, didn't know how to hold you, you began to reshape yourself. You silenced your voice, you dimmed your light, you became who they needed, not who you were. That false self helped you survive. But now, it's time to return. Returning is not easy. It means facing the grief of a self long abandoned. It means holding the sadness that arises when you realize how much of your life was lived for others. It means releasing the dream that one day they would become what you needed. And yet, as you return, step by step, something miraculous happens. You begin to feel real again. You notice your voice no longer trembles when you speak your truth. You notice your body softens in spaces where it once braced for judgment. You notice you don't shrink as much. You don't explain yourself as often. You are learning to live from your center, not from your wounds. This is not perfection. This is presence. It's the ability to be with yourself fully, even in pain, even in uncertainty, and not abandon who you are. That is the essence of Jung's work. Not becoming something new, but remembering who you've always been beneath the conditioning, beneath the fear, beneath the shame. You may still hear the old voices, the critic, the doubt, the guilt. That's okay. They are remnants of an old system, not signs that you've failed. You are not here to erase the past. You are here to outgrow it, to become so rooted in your truth that nothing can pull you back into roles that shrink your soul. And now, as you look back on this journey, the unraveling, the grief, the boundaries, the silence, the rediscovery, you may finally see what this was always about. Not punishment, not abandonment, but initiation. A sacred invitation to become who you were always meant to be, even if it meant walking through fire to get there. You are not just healing a wound, you are reclaiming your life. You are not just breaking a cycle, you are becoming whole. And the self you're returning to, the one who was never truly lost, welcomes you with open arms. This is your homecoming. This is your becoming. And from this place, the story continues. Not from pain, but from power.